But I remember one time Charlie had came to my house and he had a bag and he had prescription cough medicine in this bag. And he was pretty woozy at the time he showed up at my house, but he was drinking that. And at first I thought it was like a half pint of liquor or something. And I said, "What you drinking, liquor?" And then he pulls it out, and what it was prescription cough syrup. And I said, "Man, you don't need to be drinking that." I said, you know, that's prescription medicine. That ain't made to drink like that. And but anyway, he was drinking. And I don't know if it was his cough medicine or somebody else's cough medicine because I really didn't look at the name of it. But he did pull the bottle out, and I seen it was, a medicine bottle, prescription cough medicine. And I thought that was crazy. But also, a friend of mine told me that while Charlie was away, locked up, that his he knew some people that got in debt with some guys, owed some money, and then they couldn't pay, stuff like that. So the guys went to their house and told them they need to pay the money or they're going to have problems. And they still couldn't pay the money. So I think they told them to come back or whatever. This is just what a friend of mine's telling me. And I told them to come back. So eventually they just took the payments out on them people. And that was crazy when he told me that story. And I mentioned this in a previous audio of mine. So one thing you need to do is subscribe to the channel, hit the like and the notification bell. And once you subscribe, you should be able to start at the bottom of the audios and then work your way up. And some audios I'm jumping around in different times, but for the most part, it's kind of like falling in order. But anyways, after that happened, we end up going to stay over on Cass Avenue. And this is the Cass corridor of Detroit City. And then we're staying over there, and in this apartment, from the living room, you could open the window. The window had hinges on it where you could open it up like a door. And then it had a rooftop out there. And we used to go open the window. It was summertime. You go out there, take your chair out there, and you sit out on the rooftop where Cass Avenue is. And right down from the front of the building was where the hookers would hang out at until somebody come pick them up. So we used to hang out there and talk to them, and they would talk to us, and while they was waiting on somebody. And then sometimes they'd ask for a light. You throw them a light down there, and then they'd throw it back to you, stuff like that. But it was something we just used to chat with them and stuff like that. And but one time we're out there, and this dude's crossing the road, and his car comes down Cass Avenue, and it runs dude over. And when it runs the dude over, he goes like under the car, but then he gets hung on the back wheel of the passenger side. He gets hung between the wheel well and the tire. And then the car, the girls, the hookers out there, they just took off, because they knew the police and stuff's coming later. But anyways, he gets hooked onto the wheel well, and dude starts mashing the gas, trying to unhook the body from the car. But the body's not coming off. It's just, the tire's just spinning, on the guy's stomach, or on his stomach or chest, somewhere in that area on his body, because he's hung kind of like wrapped around the tire. And so dude just gets out the car and leaves the car there and takes off running. So later the police come. They call the morgue. It's like a black station wagon that came. And they got the guy, then they towed the car away, but we had went back in, and that was just a crazy incident that happened on Cass Avenue when we were staying at that apartment building on Cass. Also at this apartment building, there was a dude that had a big German Shepherd. He lived downstairs in the back of the building. Because the way this apartment building was is everybody parked in the back of the building, and then everybody entered and exited the back of the building. Anyways, this cat had left, and he stays gone. I think he stays gone overnight or a couple of nights or something. I don't know if he ended up getting put in jail or what the situation was, because he didn't come back. So this German Shepherd, this dude had a big glass windows back in the day where you can just slide them up and down, but this was a big one. It wasn't a regular size window. And this German Shepherd, he jumps clean through the window out into the back and just takes off. And finally the dude comes back, and then he's asking everybody what happened to his window. And then a lot of people saying, well, you left that big dog in there. And everybody used to hear it bark and everything like that. But he left that dog in there, and I guess he just got tired of being locked up. And I think dogs would do that, whether you put them in a fenced-in yard or whatever. If you don't come to feed them and give them water, or don't come to show your presence, they'll eventually jump the fence or dig under the fence or something and get out of that situation. And for that dude's situation, he just had the dog in his apartment, and the dog just jumps clean through the window, through the glass and everything, just jumps through it. And it takes off, and I don't know if the dog ever came back or not, really. But as we're staying at this place on Cass Avenue, there was a dude that lived, well, actually the owner of the building, his name was Frank Horner. And he had some daughters and a son. And we used to go to Frank's house. He lived like right down the alley. We used to go to his house because a lot of guys worked for Frank, and they would, do different jobs for him, like painting, drywall, and stuff like that in apartment buildings. And I don't know if Frank owned a lot of buildings. I know he had that building. And well, I really don't know if he owned that building, to be honest with you. I just know that a lot of guys worked for him. but he might have owned the building. And but anyways, he had this daughter named Star, and one time I was, because we used to go to their house a lot, but one time I went around to the store, and there's like two stores that we used to go to. One's on the corner, and one's like on the middle of the block at the end of the alley. But one time I'm going in the store, and I hear some girl yelling at me, and I look, and it was Star, and she was standing, by a car with this real tall dude, and I was like, "What's up?" She's like, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm fixing to go in here and get something to drink." She said, "I just wanted to holler at you and stuff like that." I said, "All right." And it's just short exchange and stuff like that. And then I left, but I remember Frank, he had two women. I don't know. I think they were saying he had both of them women that was at his place. They used to always drink and listen to the radio and stuff like that. And they was always drinking them Miller ponies, And I never could understand that. I think it was when the time they first came out, if I'm not mistaken. But because somebody who's drinking and is partying and stuff like that, you buying a bunch of them little ponies. To me, it just didn't make sense. But they used to always drink them, and they would offer you them ponies when you go to their house and stuff like that. They was real friendly people and stuff like that. And I remember this one dude that lived in the apartment building. He lived on the same floor we did. We was on the second floor, and his wife used to go to Frank's house, I think to clean his house or something. But she went over there one time. Every time she'd come back, he would always be complaining and stuff like that. And so he was actually jealous that he thought that she had something going on with Frank, is what the deal was. So they used to always be fighting and stuff like that because you'd have to walk past her apartment to go to ours. And but that dude was I heard some stories about the situation. I don't know if it's true or not, so I'm not even gonna speak on it. But dude was just jealous, thinking that she had something going on with Frank. And but anyways, as time passed, uh, that same dude, he gets into it with another dude over a parking spot behind the apartment building. And this kind of stuff went on, in Detroit back in the day. But they had got into it, and it first turned into a fight. Well, first it was an argument over the parking spot. Like somebody just was in Detroit. The way it was is like somebody would park somewhere if they lived somewhere, and they would claim that spot. You know what I mean? It wasn't designated for them. It was just a spot they claimed. And that's how it all popped off. Because, like, one person was gone, another person parked there, then another person came back, and then, it just started a big argument. Then it ended up being a fight. Then it turned into a knife fight. And these two guys cut each other up really bad. They both had to go to the hospital. I mean, they really cut each other up pretty bad. You know what I mean? Luckily, both of them ended up living. That's how bad it was. And what was crazy is after the dude came home, he was telling us that when he woke up, the guy that he got into it with was right next to him in a bed right next to him at the hospital. So he told the nurses and stuff like that, y'all need to get him out of here because, you know, at this time they're all stapled up and stitched up and all that. And they had to do blood transfusions and all that. That's how bad it was. It was real bad. But they ended up getting the dude out of the room because they didn't know that, you know, in Detroit, it's all the time you had shot victims, you have stabbed victims, and this is constantly back in the day when it was the Wild Wild West. And it was just constantly, you know, a lot of people going in with gunshot wounds, stab wounds, and me myself, I went in for the same things. I got shot in the face, I got stabbed multiple times, you know, just a whole bunch of stuff. But, you know, as crazy as it might sound, that was the norm in Detroit back in them days. Their emergency room was just constantly uh, with, you know, stab victims, gunshot wounds, you know, people getting in fights with ball bats. And it was just a rough city back in them days, you know. Anything went, just put it that way. But anyways, dude, he finally gets out. He's got a lot of staples in him, stitches in him, stuff like that. And he's telling us a story that they had accidentally put uh, the guy he had got into it with right next, you know, to him and stuff like that. And it's a good thing they got the guy out of there and separated them because even though they were both messed up and they both had blood transfusions and staples in them and stitches in them and stuff like that, something else would have happened in the hospital. That's just the way it was back in them days, you know. And and it might sound crazy to people that's listening to this, but that's just what it was back in them days, you know. Now, as many years pass, I don't want people to get the wrong idea about Detroit City because it is a good city and it's a good place to go visit and everything like that. But I'm talking back in the day is how it was, you know what I mean? And one thing about back in the days, you know, you could, a lot of us used to go to Coney Island late at night, like if we was, you know, at the bar or something like that. Sometimes we could just be at home partying. Later on, late at night, we'd go to Coney Island like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And there would always be a fight break out in the Coney Island because everybody did that. You know, if they were drinking at a bar or whatever, they would go uh, to, you know, Coney Island. And there would always be some type of fight break off, you know, it'd be some drunk dude or whatever, you know, then another drunk guy. And actually, if you could just look up fights at Coney Island in Detroit, Michigan, and you'll see what I'm talking about because it's on YouTube. But that's kind of stuff that went down back in the day. And, you know, it's just a wild, wild west back in the day. And, you know, but things died down a lot over the years because now you can't really do that today in today's time because everybody's got a gun. You know what I mean? And you just can't do that. You know, and a lot of times people today in today's time, you know, you got a few cats that might want to fight with each other or whatever, but most of the time nobody's wanting to get into a fight. It's going to be some shooting going on or something, you know. So it's a lot different today than it was back in the day, if that makes any sense. But a lot of things happen in the city, and I had a friend in the city that he had told me that I didn't see him for a good while. Then he came by my apartment, and I was asking him where's he been. 'Cause I ain't seen him in a long time. He was like, "Man, a lot of stuff's happened since I've been gone." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, I had to go to me and my brother got cut up. We had to go to the hospital and stuff like that." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, we was drinking beer and stuff. Then we decided we was gonna go to the store and get some more beer." And he said, as they, I don't remember if he said as they was going there, probably on their way back, I would say. Because I'm sure the people was trying to steal their beer and rob them is what the deal was. And then they got in a knife fight and they both got cut up. And I believe the other people got cut up and all that. But anyways, it was just a big mess. And he said, that's the reason he was laid low for a while. But that's just some incidents that happen. And but I'm gonna leave it right there, and there'll be another one coming up soon. So y'all subscribe, hit the like and the notification bell, and just hear the stories that happen in Detroit City. That being said, we out.